Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have the old trifecta today. That's right. We had a breakup story. We had a Becca Martinez being sort of a weird mom story. No hate there. And now we have a Madi Prewett story. We really hit the trifecta of barrel scraping. Follow me on Instagram at DNeals if you enjoy a good barrel scraping. And also Patreon. Thank you to all the new members. As you guys know, when it came to the breakup of Serene and Brandon, we've been talking about that on Patreon for a few weeks now. Patreon.com/Dave Neal. Also, if you want a private look at some of the, inner workings of podcasting in the Bachelor community, you'll see that today on today's Patreon. I actually have been conversing with some assistants to some very high up podcasters in the Bachelor world. Some might say the greatest of all time. And I'll be locking in a date for an interview in the next couple weeks. So you can get all that information out and more privately on patreon.com/Dave Neal. All right, Afternoon Bachelor Rush Hour podcast. That's coming up next, but let's get into it. Madi has an announcement, big news, exciting announcement coming Wednesday. My guess is the exciting announcement is they're paying their taxes this year. No, of course, Grant is whispering sweet nothings into her ear. I paid him. I bought our house for cash. You know what I mean? Billionaire son. I don't know. I'm just kidding. They're wealthy. What can you do? Jesus said everyone can be wealthy, right? Didn't he say that? Just as long as, you're not making money off of, slave labor and things like that. All right. So everyone's like, is it a baby? What's going on? Are you launching your second book? And it appears it is a book. We don't know if that's what her announcement is going to be, but here she is looking, Barbie business casual. Game of Roses posted this. Maddie Troutt is coming out with another book called The Love Everybody Wants, which will be released September 19th. We're already running to that pre-order button. My guess is they're imploring or the use of sarcasm here. But others are saying, what is the love everybody wants? She's been married for a good month. Like, what kind of love does she, and the subtitle says, what you're looking for is already yours. At least she used the right version of your. That's nice. That's always good for an author. Best-selling author of Made for This Moment. So there she is, folks. That's your Madi Prewett update. Anything else from her Instagram? Let's have a look here. Some people are surprised they're not launching a podcast. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they're not doing a podcast. Let's watch one of her clips.
How do you love people? If God's proudness of you is predicated on how you love people, is he proud of you?
Wow.
Because that's what he cares about. That's his heart.
My favorite part of these speeches is the other people on mics that go, wow.
And as his children, our heart should be what his heart is. So Lord, give me insight, give me vision. How do I love and serve people well? If it's not about me, how can I lay down my life?
My guess is the best way to show your love is to profit off of it. You know what I mean? We live in a capitalistic society. And I'm all about capitalism, folks. I like capitalism. I think it should be regulated in certain ways. And why do I relate that back to Madi? Well, because she was endorsing Shein, the clothing line that's been credibly accused of slave child labor violations and things like that. Environmental issues too. So, you gotta ethically, know what you're supporting here. But, well, let's hope that whoever prints the books that she decides to write has some ethical practices, because of course Jesus would have wanted healthy work conditions. And as we speak about work conditions, how can I tie a Madi Prewett story to work conditions? Well, you know me, I think it's always good to have a social topic that's worthwhile to discuss in our society. And one of which right now is the Writers Guild of America strike. Tom Hanks, I don't know if he's in the Writers Guild. He would be if he wrote a project and whatever. A lot of famous actors are also producers and writers. Tom Hanks on the strike. That entire industry is at a crossroads, and everybody knows it. As we know that we had the IATSE strike, IATSE, I think is the acronym, or is it an acronym? Either way, that strike or potential strike would have affected Bachelor. Writers Guild of America doesn't affect Bachelor, Bachelorette, or really any reality TV because they don't have writers. They have story creators, which is like a term they use to skirt around the writer issue. I know plenty of friends that write on, say, funny game shows, but they're not considered writers because game shows can't afford or refuse to pay union wages, which really aren't that much, but of course everyone, I think, deserves a livable wage. Now, the issue we have here is, will will automation be taking over the writing room? So what happened was basically this. When streaming services like Netflix came out, in their infancy, they weren't making much money. So in order to get people to write on those shows, like Orange is the New Black, these shows that were super successful but super early on, in order to get people to write on those shows, there was a new contract for streaming services. But now you've got Peacock, Apple TV, Netflix, Roku, VG, Yoo-Hoo, Madi Prewett, Who, everyone, I'm sure the Maddie's Church has a streaming service, you know what I mean? Netflix, Christian flicks, just Christian movies, I don't know, Hallmark, so there's a million apps out there. Everyone who's a writer is working on these kind of lame contracts because of this negotiation that took place previously. And now the production companies, the producers, the powers that be, the billionaires, literally the only billionaires in the industry here are these giant producers. And they might not be billionaires like the CEO of Netflix. There's two CEOs, co-CEOs. They each made around $50 million this last year. They made in profit. I know. I was going to cancel my Netflix subscription, but it turns out I steal it from my mom. You know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? Hey, Mom, you need to cancel your Netflix. Why? Because I'm in a union and we need to stick up for unions. So anyway, here's what Joe Biden had to say about the strike.
Nights like these are a reminder of the power of stories and the importance of treating storytellers with dignity, respect, and the value they deserve. I sincerely hope the writers' strike in Hollywood gets resolved and the writers are given a fair deal they deserve as soon as possible.
What people need to understand about writers and other performers is we've got nothing to lose. This strike could last a long time. This could be a huge, and this is why I say that Bachelor, like the franchise, isn't going to go anywhere. Because if this strike doesn't get resolved anytime soon, you're seeing shows like Succession and tons of shows that are out there all halting production. And what you're going to see for the first time, I think, ever, is the Directors Guild of America, the DGA, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, the Writers Guild, and IATSE, and Teamsters, all gigantic unions. They're all kind of holding on in solidarity right now, and people are looking at this as a real win for workers. Now, a lot of people think, unions are bad, and that's because of a lot of propaganda where we're not supposed to discuss wages, we're not supposed to talk about our own work conditions. Why? Because the bosses don't want us to know we're getting exploited. Hollywood is the single best example of mature labor power in America. I know, guys, this is no longer a Madi Prewett video. We're talking about something that actually matters, not Maddie's book. Okay. Some coloring book. It's just about it's like dinosaurs, like Jesus being ridden by dinosaurs. Do Christians believe that dinosaurs? Look, I was raised Catholic. I went home to my family, and they too, there's a gray area as whether or not they believe dinosaurs existed when humans did. Spoiler, all evidence proves not even close. But the town that my wife is from, somewhere in Kentucky, has a creation museum, and they've got the Noah's Ark, and they've got dinosaurs being ridden, into the Noah's Ark. All right, folks. What side of history are you going to be on? Either way, unions don't just improve wages, they create stable careers. This afternoon, May 6th. Okay, so I'm going to read the article. The Writers Guild is on strike. Hollywood is closed for business. The union's bargaining documents reveal a cartel of studios that refuse to negotiate on a single position. This could go on for a long ass time. The writers are up for it. A lot of people are saying this is the first writer strike since 2007, but that's not quite right. That was the last time the writers went on strike against the studios, but in 2019, the writers struck against their own talent agents. Within the space of a week, all 7,000 writers in Hollywood fired their agents. They struck against the agencies for 22 months. Well, this might be a separate issue, but what you'll find out is that agents will use you as leverage against yourself. So if agents represent multiple different writers, they might get you a bad deal because they're getting someone else a good deal or getting someone else in the door. What's important to remember is nobody has your back. You need collective bargaining. The agencies had consolidated down to 4 major firms, 2 backed by private equity who loaded them up with debt that could only be repaid if the agencies figured out how to vastly increase their profits. They did so by unilaterally switching the way they did business with their clients. Instead of taking a 10% commission on the creative wages they bargained for, agencies started to take packaging fees from the studios for putting together a writer, director, stars, etc. These fees came out of the same budget that the talent got paid from. So the higher the fee was, the less the talent made. Soon, some showrunners were discovering that they were getting 10% and their agents were getting 90%. Is that fair, folks? The agencies weren't done either. They were building their own studios and planning to negotiate with themselves on behalf of their clients. The writers said, F this stuff. They issued a code of conduct ordering the agencies to knock all that off. The agencies swore they'd never do it. Why should they? Every job these writers had ever done came through an agency, and the agencies were staffed with the toughest, most obnoxious negotiators on the planet. They were sure the writers would cave. After all, the top tier of writers had been handled with kid gloves by the agencies and not ripped off to the same extent as their jobbing workaday peers. They'd break solidarity and the union would collapse, right? So that was the idea, is that yes, there are rich, very wealthy writers out there. I know millionaire writers that are in Writers Guild of America, but there's also a lot of writers that barely get by, that only get one job a year. 22 months later, everyone at the agencies caved on every single point. Bam, union strong! So the point is that collective bargaining keeps the powers that be, the producers, the billionaires, the elitists. It keeps them at bay because they can't do what they want without the hard-working people that are actually accomplishing those directives. So when we look at this, and again, this isn't about Madi, right? This is just an issue here. If anyone's on the fence about unions, and I can't speak for all unions. Certainly, there are some that, drive up wages to a point where I don't know. There's certain unions that are out there that I can't audit, that I'm not discussing. But when it comes to exploitation, and again, if I can tie this back to Madi in any way whatsoever, I'd say this. We have to be careful about exploitation. Exploitation happens in plenty of different places. Our workplace, it also happens in religion. What would Jesus do is kind of the simple and very it's a good moral compass. What would Jesus do? But when people start telling you Jesus would do this, so you need to do that, that's when you need to have an issue. I'm not saying Madi's doing that, but you definitely have to audit people that are in sort of those platforms of power and influence. So it will be very interesting to see what her book looks like. But if you aren't caught up on the Writers Guild of America strike, this is going to affect you. If you watch fictional TV, if you watch scripted TV, this is going to affect, maybe not right away, maybe not in 6 months, but there will be a time when they run out of shows that are already written, and they're going to need the labor of the writers. And my assumption is the sooner that they settle this negotiation, the sooner we can go back to working, which everyone wants to do. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. I'm sure I pissed somebody off in one way or another. I don't even know how or why, but I will be there to discuss this further. Every afternoon, Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast. Check that out, bachelorrushhour.com.